Monday morning on the stream. Will Kamala Harris pick Josh Shapiro? That is the latest out of Mark Halperin. Once at the top of the world for political gossip merchants, banished to the shadow realm of Me Too, and now from the void. Somehow Palpatine has returned. He is delivering hints, developing yesterday with a picture of Kamala Harris and Josh Shapiro. We will talk about the status of the Kamala Veep race. And then anything else you guys want to talk about? You know, this is a really weird week in this race. We are sub 100 days. Labor Day is usually the mark that we go by of when the race really gets real. But 100 days is a good enough marker, especially considering everything that's happened. What we don't know is what matters in terms of numbers. I was in our group chat with Michael Cohen and Tom LoBianco, and I was like, all right, so right now, you had good numbers for Kamala, certainly compared to Joe Biden's before he dropped out. But how do we think about numbers that are a month away from the worst debate performance of all time, 2 weeks away from an assassination attempt, a week and a half away from one convention, and 5 days away from the disaster debate performer dropping out and somebody else being coronated? Like, I don't know how to look at these numbers. We keep saying we're going to wait for them to settle out. At least we had a precedented weekend. Very happy about that. These unprecedented weekends were getting a little tiring. I'm just going to say. A little tiring. Full disclosure. This might get cut short at some point because I am I'm trying to get more World's Greatest Con recording done because I want to get an episode out to you guys in August. Out pre-baby. That's my goal. My goal is to get another episode of World's Greatest Con out before the baby shows up. So if Brian awakens and says, yes, he is down to record, then I am going to bail. But until then, we can have a good time, you know? Remember when the Olympics used to be a pause period where we could focus on competition in athletics? I got to say, I'm all in on the basketball this year, too. And handball. Why is handball so good? Handball's awesome. Uh, 170,000 volunteers is good numbers. Yes. I don't know. I honestly, this is not me doubting it. I just don't know how to understand internal metrics like that. Like, they're self-reported, but I don't know why you'd gaslight yourself. There's obviously enthusiasm. But it's like, when we say that there's 160,000 volunteers, are we just saying that people are on a text list? Like, I don't know. This is not me doubting it. It's just, I don't view those as core metrics for how I understand a race. I think that you'd rather be putting that out than not putting it out. That is my take on that. I have seen the Seymour Hersh write-up. Um, I don't know where we're at on Biden discourse these days, but something clicked because what Seymour Hersh wrote is that essentially he was confirming a lot of stuff that's kind of been out there. One thing that he hinted at that he did not go as far as other people have is that Biden had a more than COVID health event in Vegas. Red State has kind of led the path reporting on this kind of stuff. And let me just say, from my perspective, Red State does a good job putting stuff out there that winds up being more real than I think their reputation, which is obviously very partisan because they're a partisan outlet, would lead you to believe. I mean, Red State was early on the Katie Hill stuff. Red State was very early on the Ronna McDaniel spending too much stuff that eventually led her out of that position. And they were early on the idea that Joe Biden had some kind of health event in Vegas that initially led the Secret Service to call for Biden to be rushed to a hospital, a local hospital. They then determined that they could take him to Air Force One, and they treated him on Air Force One. Now, what Red State has gone further on is saying that it might have been some kind of stroke event, which, and this might be me trying to salvage and defend my old take, so take it with a grain of salt. But Joe Biden having, let's fantasy hats, boop, putting our fantasy hat on. If Joe Biden had a stroke in Vegas and everybody on the inside knew about it, because you couldn't hide it, because there was staff there, you had, Secret Service people there. So it's like people on the inside, this is going to get out. It's not a private thing that happened in Joe Biden's bedroom. Then that is the kind of thing that Nancy Pelosi can go to him and say, hey, look, either you lay down your sword now or this is going to be public. And that's going to make your run for president impossible. And it's just going to tank everything. But it's the precursor and justification for the 25th Amendment. It makes sense. It makes sense. Because what has not made sense in my mind is, why does Joe Biden go from listening to numbers or not listening to numbers to listening to numbers? And that is the story that we've been given, is that Joe Biden finally looked at numbers and said, whoa, these numbers. Oh, no, I need to not run for president. I just don't feel like that dude at that point would do that. But then again, that's the story now. It looked like bruises from breathing gear. Oh, in his address, his Wednesday address. Yeah, Vegas con crud. We've all been there. Joe was in Vegas right before he came back to DC with COVID, and then resigned, or sorry, not resigned. He stepped down as candidate. That was where he was right before. Would Kamala have a Barry Bonds asterisk if she were the first woman president because she didn't win a primary? No. No. She would be the full-blooded, absolute primo candidate. It's a big poll. It's a big poll right now to unite women around the idea that there's going to be a female president, something that there's never been before. Now, if we might for a second retreat to international news. I saw something yesterday that immediately reminded me of home and made me feel really good. So on Sundays, I like to walk from where I am about 5 miles to this area of Austin called South Congress. And all of a sudden, I hear a bunch of people honking their horn, and I think that somebody's just, being an asshole in traffic, because that happens. But no, it was a bunch of people with Venezuelan flags that were honking their horn in celebration. Now, usually, when anybody from Central or South America is in a car parade honking their horn, waving their flag out of their car, there is one thought: that their nation has won some kind of soccer tournament. And I was like, well, hold on, wait a minute. The America, the Copa America, that's just done, right? And we're not far enough into the Olympics, and I don't think that the Olympics is looked at as like a major soccer tournament. Why are these Venezuelans so happy? And then I looked it up. They had a big election, and according to exit polls, Nicolas Maduro, the leader, got blowed out. People were very, very happy. And then Nicolas Maduro says, no, turns out we counted the votes. I won. Squeaker, though. Squeaker. It was a squeaker. Not great, Bob. Venezuela, of course, a nation that was once tremendously petroleum rich. I mean, I guess it still is petroleum rich, but was very, very rich, a very rich country. And, as through the Hugo Chavez and now Nicolas Maduro regimes, enjoyed the equity of communism. There was a tweet I saw that, you can vote your way into communism. Voting your way out of communism is a little harder. That's a little harder. I'm very happy for those people on South Congress. And I was, I gotta say, like they're driving down and they have their Venezuelan flags out of the car and like they're honking their horn and I'm like, hey. And then I'm like, I gotta remember to look up what I'm cheering for. I might not like it. I don't know. Maybe they were Maduro fans. I doubt that they were Maduro fans, but maybe they were Maduro fans. Who knows? Was it you, Heaton, or Briney that was advocating for the Supreme Court justices' term limits and to give each president 2 picks? It is a Heaton thing that every president should get 2 picks, although I don't know if he's put term limits on that as well. But that is the Heaton idea, to give every president 2 picks. Do I have inside info about Harris choosing Shapiro? No, I don't. All I have is Mark Halperin's Twitter account, which, again, back in the day, Mark Halperin was, the dean of political gossip books, co-writer of Game Change. And then he nailed the Biden thing. The Biden thing he got 100% right. 100% right. Down to the day, he got that right. So Mark Halperin, so hot right now, Mark Halperin. Yesterday, he put up a picture of Harris and Shapiro and just said developing. No, not Ben Shapiro. Now, the rumors are that the top 3 are Shapiro, Kelly, and Tim Walz, governor of Minnesota. Tim Walz has done, very, very interesting, good, I think very good television stuff. He featured on our PX3 Sunday edition yesterday. I think he's compelling. It really just depends on what they want. What is the message that they want to send about Kamala? Because, by the way, right now there's a big sugar high for Kamala. And it's because Democrats over the last week were very excited that they stopped hitting themselves. They've been hitting themselves hard for 3 weeks. Hard. And so they weren't hitting themselves, and it was, euphoria. But let's be clear here. A lot of the excitement over Kamala is people seeing in Kamala what they want to see. Now, to a certain extent, that is the mark of a winning presidential run. But there are some lines you're going to have to draw. And this vice presidential pick is going to be one of them. Does she want the moderate who is going to make her more of a border hawk, possibly to the point of breaking with Biden, because Mark Kelly has broken with Biden. But he has no riz, aside from the fact that he's an astronaut. Great story, no riz. Do you go with the solid, possibly a better candidate for the top of the ticket than you are, Josh Shapiro, moderate, in a state you absolutely need, but he might make Chicago into a war zone because he called Palestinian protesters akin to the KKK. So there's the upside and the downside there. Or do you go with Tim Walz? Tim Walz is a progressive governor who has put in progressive plans for which you can say, buckle up, kids. When we say it's the past and the future is progressive. I am a progressive candidate. He is my progressive running mate. This is what we are going to do. Like, we are a nicer version of the progressive movement that has been a absolute gasoline in the tank for the Democratic Party over the last 10 years. They have to decide that. So when I say that there's a sugar high, it's just that at a certain point, Kamala is going to have to draw lines, at least for stuff like that. She's going to have to decide how much is she running away from Biden's record, how much is she owning Biden's record. And when she's walking away, how is she doing it and for what reasons? There's a lot of things that kind of need to be fleshed out that have yet to be fleshed out that will put a little bit of a... I don't want to say it's going to dampen the enthusiasm because we don't know if it will, but it is going to make Kamala less everything to everyone and more a specific candidate. That's going to happen. So when I say that there was a sugar high last week, I think that it's because everybody's looking at Kamala and seeing exactly what they want. Progressives see a very progressive candidate that can win. Centrists see a centrist candidate that can win. Eventually you're going to have to make decisions that complicate your coalition. And the other issue is that right now, the Republican attack line on her is that she is ultra liberal, the most liberal person to ever run. So, if you are going by a reactive nature, then you are saying we need to shore this up, and so let's go with Mark Kelly. Boring, but he's not going to, there is a movement to stop genocide Josh Shapiro. There is no stop genocide Mark. Avianthalum, I think she is the tabula rasa for the Democrats. For last week, she does have a record. She has said things on camera, right? And so that's what the Republicans are going to run against. El Condor Pasa, she was the Law and Order type, wasn't she? Well, no, I've said she is best if she fashions herself a Law and Order liberal. That's my opinion. If I were advising Kamala Harris, I would say, I'm going to steal this one from Brian, but this is a Brian Brushwood take. If I were running Kamala Harris's campaign, I would make her very focused on finding out information and prosecuting the assassination of Donald Trump. Demonstrate that you are about rule of law. Rule of law is what matters. A former president was almost assassinated, And I'm going to, through my office and through the powers of the vice president, I'm going to do everything I can. I'm going to be very visual on that. I'm going to put out on my Twitter, on my social media, here's what we know, here's what we don't know. I am efforting the following things from the following people. I would make her more of a busybody on that than Congress does. And signal this is not about, like, anything that I say from here is not about personal animus. This is about moving forward. I think that is a galaxy brain move, but I think it would be brilliant. I don't think she's going to do that. I don't think she's going to do that. But again, she does need to sell the vision beyond I'm going to prosecute Donald Trump. She needs to sell the vision of what the Kamala Harris presidency is like. And she didn't have a lot of time to do it. And one of the biggest things that she has to figure out is Israel and Palestine. How real is the Vance said a thing story that are mostly just older clips that are being dug up? Well, so nobody is voting for Donald Trump because of J.D. Vance. Might independent people not vote for Donald Trump because of J.D. Vance? I doubt it. I don't know if a 4-year-old interview with Ben Domenech is going to be any more or less salient than January 6th, right? Like, if that's your litmus test and you've already made a decision to get over January 6th, do you care about a 4-year-old interview with Ben Domenech that J.D. Vance did? I don't know. Maybe, very specifically, the Democratic oppo is to push women, suburban women, away from that ticket. I got to publish this Substack today, but I'm going to make a point that laughter is a very, very, very important phenomenon. It is the demonstration that we are winning when we are inside the tent, but it is also a scourge if you believe you are being laughed at. And I do think that this, like, J.D. Vance, what a weirdo, what a psycho, oh my God, what a big fat idiot. If J.D. Vance is on this ticket to unite Rust Belt voters from Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, I think he's got an interesting narrative if he goes into every one of these beer halls and says, hey, I grew up in situations like a lot of you. And then based on the standards of the coastal elite, I did great. First, I left. They hate it here, so I left. That was good for me to do that. Then I went to Yale. I graduated from Yale. They love Yale. I got into business in California. They love business in California. Just look at their fundraising. I wrote a book. Every one of these guys wants to write a book. I wrote a book. And it was so good, it was a New York Times bestseller. And then the only thing that's better than writing a book and having it be a New York Times bestseller for these folks is to get it made into a movie. And I did. And the only thing better than to write a book and get it made into a movie is have the movie nominated for an Oscar. Very, very, very lucky. Very, very happy that all that stuff happened. And they loved me. Until I said my real opinion. Then I'm a dumb idiot who fucks couches and wants to jack off to dolphins. That's how high I climbed in their eyes. That's how fast I got tossed. And remember that when they wanted to mock me, where did they mock me? They tried to take my greatest creative achievement, a memoir about my upbringing in poverty in Ohio, and they wanted to heap scorn upon it. Because that's where they believe our greatest shame is, that we're from here. They hate you. And you know it because they loved me until they didn't. And when they wanted to throw me off the mountain, what did they do? They made fun of where I came from. If I were J.D. Vance, I would say that. If I were J.D. Vance, that's what I would say. But I'm not. I mean, the couch fucking thing is crazy because it's basically the Gorilla Channel. Like, y'all remember the Gorilla Channel with Trump? That was the funniest, man. The Gorilla Channel was the best. That was, I think it was like One Big Hand, whatever that account is on Twitter. But he was really good at just like putting stuff out on Twitter that was like altered slightly and then being like, oh, wow. But it was like one of the Trump books where apparently like Trump liked watching nature channels, but only wanted a channel where the gorillas are fighting. And so they had to edit together a 17-hour tape of only gorillas fighting called the Gorilla Channel. And so it was bullshit. It was fake. And so the couch fucking thing has no basis in reality. Like, it is just straight out mockery of J.D. Vance for no reason. Like, it is just because liberals really, 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 really want to hate this guy. And that's fine. It's politics. You know, you gotta put on your big boy pants. You know what they say about weed strains? You know, sativa is more of a creative, kind of get things done high. But J.D. Vance is into couch. I don't know how many people are going to get that, but I think it's pretty funny. But yeah, but it is no, like, there's no element. There's not even like a rumor. It was literally just a Twitter joke. There is a big push right now by the Democrats to just use one word to describe Trump and Vance. Weird. They are weird. This is a weird ticket. They are weird people. It's very deplorables. Yeah, a P-Ton guy, Snopes, posted it, and then they're like, we can't really be sure it was false. Well, the initial tweet that got it started said that it was in his book. For which I would say, if that shit was in his book, you don't think that would have made the trailer? And by the way, if Glenn Close is the one that has to find that used glove, you don't think she wins the Oscar instead of just getting nominated? Come on, man. This is my thing. My thing with the Kamala laugh. If it's just the Kamala laugh to portray her as unserious, I don't know the research on it. I don't know if, like, when you play that laugh, men are like, I will never vote for her for president, and women are like 50%. Oh my God, I would never vote for her for president. Maybe that's the case. My thought on it is that every message involving Kamala's laugh is Kamala is not laughing. She is laughing at you. You, the voter that believes, whatever. The laugh thing is sexist. Um, yeah. I mean, all right. So it is unquestionably gendered, and it is a vulnerability because there is a lot of pressure on politicians in general, but I will say women politicians specifically, that you have to be likable, right? So the idea of being likable without bubbleheadedness is, because there's been less female politicians, there are fewer blueprints to look at, where there is a wealth of male politicians' blueprints to be like, oh, I want you, you should be like this. So you should be, if you're an old athlete, then you should be, more jocular. You should be like maybe a little JFK. You're a bit of a jock, but you're brainy. You like to break a mental sweat as well. Or maybe you're a technocrat. And so you don't really need to smile every once in a while. But if you can have a really a good joke up at the top of the speech and one in the middle, then people are going to laugh even harder. It's a little bit weirder with female politicians, and over laughing is something that reads as inauthentic. And I think that that's what they were trying to get at with Hillary, and that is what they are trying to get at with Kamala, is that if you are over laughing, then you are trying to hide something. That's like an elemental hard-coded thing into humans. That being said, Hillary never laughed as much as Kamala does. Kamala laughs a lot. Kamala laughs on camera a lot. Who does Brat Summer play to? Hyperpop gays. That's who. Brat Summer plays to hyperpop gays. And then, the coconut tree stuff is for irony rich spreadsheet fuckers from the left. Now, can those memes break through? Can they be fun for a mainstream audience? Very possible. Very likely. You never really know what takes hold in the mainstream. It's another conversation. Who knew why Hawk to a girl, is now on every podcast, right? is calling her a coconut similar to an Oreo. Well, there are some folks for whom use that term, but that is not what this one is. I mean, again, the coconut tree stuff and the passage of time and all those, the Venn diagram thing, all of those were memes made by the left saying Kamala's an idiot, but we would prefer her over Biden. That is how I understood those memes initially. It was a meme of irony until it became so dire with Biden that it became a battle flag, and now it's a battle flag. But these, again, it's like when I talk about the sugar high, it's like there's a lot of alliances of people that really don't get along, and we didn't have a real knockdown, drag out primary to subjugate some of these groups. Every single one of these groups, a part of the Democratic coalition, is going to believe that you need to go hard in their direction or else everything's lost. And so when I foresee that there might be infighting in our very near future, that's why. Because if Kamala picks Josh Shapiro, then the Palestinian protesters are going to be like, she just lost the election. She's siding with the murder of children. This guy said that anybody who spoke up about it was the KKK. This is disgusting. Now, they'll still probably vote for her, but you're going to have problems there. If she picks Tim Walz, then the centrist side are going to be like, okay, really? You're going to pick a dude that is driving right into the caricature of what the Republicans are talking to you about? What are you, crazy? You just lost the election. The Palestinian protesters don't vote, but they do light things on fire, and they will do that in Chicago. In 1968, the Democrats, the indelible image of the Democratic Party for 1968 was Chicago on fire. And it was enough for America to say maybe a law and order man like Nixon is good for us. Now if we want to ignore the noise, here are the only two things I'm focused on. State polls for Pennsylvania, state polls for Georgia. That's it. Let's go ahead and take a look at the map because I want to show you guys where I believe this is where my head is at right now. 270 to win. No Jar Jar news. All right. So this is basically how the map was understood at the point that Joe Biden dropped out. Democrats were getting their ass kicked in Nevada, their ass kicked in Arizona, their ass kicked in Georgia, their ass kicked in North Carolina. So the Sun Belt states, these states were tilting out of reach for the Republicans, and so, for the Democrats, and so they needed Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. That brings them to 270. Squeaker, 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 but that's the inside straight that they needed. Now, Kamala Harris comes in, and we don't know right now, we have no idea what the actual shakeout of the coalition is going to be. You're going to gain with women. You're going to gain with young voters. You are going to lose with seniors, right? Seniors loved Joe Biden on a level that they normally don't love a Democratic candidate. They loved Joe Biden. I wonder why. So, also you're going to lose with white working class voters. Joe Biden's superpower was white working class voters. So that means, unfortunately, that in your trade, you are losing some of the core demo for these states, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. Now, we'll get back to there in a second. Here's where you gain with. You gain with black voters and you gain with young voters. To me, that means that you need to win Georgia. Georgia is a non-negotiable in a Kamala Harris, a Kamala Harris-led ticket. If you cannot win Atlanta, if you cannot turn out the black vote in Atlanta to the point where you win Georgia with a black person on the ticket, then I think that things are rough. I think things are really, really rough. But let's say that happens. Let's leave Nevada and Arizona as they are right now. Let's not throw Mark Kelly in there. Let's give Michigan to the Republicans. Let's give Wisconsin to the Dems. That leaves Pennsylvania. So even if, let's say, you are losing one of these states, in my mind, you still need Pennsylvania. 271, 267. Squeaker, squeaker, squeaker. But it gets you there. Now, let's say you lose Pennsylvania. See? You can win Wisconsin, you can win Michigan. If you lose Pennsylvania, you still lose the election. In my mind, the states I am paying the most attention to are Georgia and PA. That's it. And so when you hear the conversation about Josh Shapiro, I think that might be where they're looking, is like, hey, we know we have to roll the dice with the Palestinian thing. We got to roll the dice with the Gaza stuff, because we don't win this election without Pennsylvania and Georgia. Can Mark Kelly flip Arizona? No. Mark Kelly cannot by himself flip Arizona. If you pick Mark Kelly, then Kamala Harris has to do a speech about the border. And she needs to say, Joe Biden is the greatest man who ever lived, but we have divergent opinions on where we should go in the future with the border. As vice president, I went down to the root cause of this. I went down to the Northern Triangle and I said, do not come. Now, this is a problem that is bigger than just the border. And I think the simplistic idea of Donald Trump building a border wall won't make anybody safer. What we need to do is a comprehensive plan that does comprehensive, take it seriously, right? You need to say, this is what we are going to do. You need to not sound like Joe Biden and Alejandro Mayorkas, who say, it's great. It's great. It's Trump who tank the border bill. Dumb. It's a dumb strategy. It wasn't working with Biden. It's not going to work with Kamala. Like you need to have something more than that. You need to have something more than that. Like saying, oh, Trump tanked the border bill. That's so inside DC. Nobody gives a shit. Nobody gives a shit. What are you doing now? What are you going to do when you get elected? Calling the vice president a DEI hire is a closeted racist remark. I mean, if it is being said with invective, is it closeted? You know, this kind of gets into the sticky world of DEI in general, if we are not to ascribe it as a pejorative or a positive to anybody. The world of diversity, equity, and inclusion, as we understand it as a bureaucracy, is one that by racial lines attempts to level the playing field through hiring practices. By its necessity, it is understanding a racial reality. So when Joe Biden lists Kamala Harris as somebody who is a great grand success story of diversity, equity, and inclusion, you are opening up the door to say she's a DEI hire. Now, does that mean that the people that are saying it say it with too much bass in their voice and it sounds like the N-word? Yeah. It's that too. It's just, we are in a world where we are trying to reshape things by way of race, then you're going to get stuff like that. I'm joining late. Have I talked about the media trying to reshape the narrative on Harris? Is anyone believing the supposed and sudden enthusiasm? Look, I believe that there is real enthusiasm on the left. I think that if you are on the right or if you are skeptical of it, you do need to open your eyes and understand that there is a real enthusiasm. My question is, how much of it is because the Democrats stopped hitting themselves? It's very hard and ugly to dislodge a sitting president from a re-election bid. We just saw how ugly it is. So when that ends, you got to be really happy that it ends. And you have turned to somebody that you might not have fully understood, as Alfred once told Bruce Wayne about the mob and the Joker. I think what is going to happen now is the Democratic coalition actually understanding what they're working with. We will see whether or not the enthusiasm keeps up. I don't know. Stranger things have happened. I do think that things are going to get more complicated with the Democratic coalition and Kamala Harris, because she's not going to be everything to everyone. She is not a blank slate. In fact, she has trotted out her wares once before and was roundly rejected by Democrats. To quote Justin quoting Veep, the American people can't have two women on the ticket. No. The exact quote is, an all-woman ticket, look, the American people work really hard for a living. They don't deserve that shit. By the way, oh shit, I forgot what I was going to say. Because I was reading Knooch. So much for the Democrats fall in love, Republicans fall in line. Democrats are falling in line like a motherfucker. Third cycle in a row. Third cycle in a row. Where Democrats have fallen right in line with a candidate that didn't really have broad enthusiasm. We'll see. Kamala maybe. We'll see. We'll see. But Hillary Clinton didn't. Joe Biden didn't. And then Joe Biden did it again. But he left. And so now we have the restart with Kamala. But meanwhile, in 3 cycles, the Republicans, possibly to their detriment, have just been in big, ooey, gooey love. They're like, we don't care if he tells voters not to vote by mail. We don't care. We don't care if he obviously has untreated PTSD. We don't care. Nobody's talking about that. There is 0% chance on earth that Donald Trump is appropriately dealing therapeutically with the PTSD of almost dying. Right? Who thinks that Donald Trump is doing cognitive therapy to deal with the fact that he almost died? That man has no doubt untreated PTSD. I had a friend who took a near miss to the head in Iraq. It took him 9 months for it to affect him. Yes. This is what I am saying. I think it made him feel more unstoppable. I mean, for now, yeah. Like, look, human beings are complicated. If he goes to therapy, he's not strong. Oh, yeah, there's some very... I don't know who in his life would be able to tell him that he needs to talk to somebody about processing his emotions. Like, there is zero chance you get through that without it hanging over you. But did he really come out to many men? Or was that just an internet thing? Was that real or not? The 50 Cent song. Many men wish death upon me. Blood in my eyes, darling, I can't see. I'm trying to be what I'm destined to be. I saw the video, but I don't know if it's for real. All right, here's a song. I'm gonna get a coffee. I'll be right back.
The fairways stretch a silent cry underneath the endless sky, where swings and dreams would intertwine. Now shadows on the calm remind of all the scars that hide behind this peaceful stride. Beneath the hills where fairways green, haunted by a past unseen, swinging clubs but losing grip. In silence, memories start to slip. Beyond the perfect shot, I fight a storm within. Torn between the present and the shadows of where I've been. Out on the track.
All right. God, I'll tell you what, how totally erased from the memory of this election is that Supreme Court case. Holy crap. When is Trump going to be sentenced? John Oliver just told the country that Israel's committing genocide? Oh my God, really? Is that a shock? Are we surprised that John Oliver is on, lockstep with the progressive causes? On pay cable TV, not like, it wouldn't, I mean, yeah, he has an audience of literally millions of people that already believe that, right? Oh shit, what was I looking for? I got distracted. Oh, Trump sentencing. September 18th. If Trump goes to jail, I mean, gee, that's the only other way that this can go crazy. Knock, knock, knock. This from Politico. Suddenly, Pete Buttigieg is everywhere. The transportation secretary is blitzing the airwaves with his Midwest nice takedowns of Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. Members of Congress are talking him up, and Buttigieg's digital alumni network is circling clips of appearances and touting his complimentary skills to Kamala Harris. He did a canvassing kickoff for Harris in Traverse City, Michigan on Saturday, and an ally in his home state in Indiana, saying that they were acting independently of Buttigieg, but they've compiled a dossier evaluating Harris's options and concluding, simply put, the vibes are high. The Pete for Veep trial balloon is approaching mid-flight, and his allies view it as a clear signal that Buttigieg wants the job. All right, looks like we are going to wrap it up here in a second. But Harris' confidants and allies remain skeptical about his chances. According to interviews with half a dozen of them, all granted anonymity to speak freely, they anticipate she'll be ruthlessly pragmatic about her selection, viewing contenders from outside the Beltway as better positioned to deliver key states and constituencies. Of Buttigieg once said, "I just don't see it." Come on, just say it. Say it. We all know why it can't be Troll Boy, right? We all know why it can't be. What would be ruthlessly pragmatic? Are we going to talk about the Trump thing? The Trump not needing to vote in 4 years? We're back to 2016, huh? We're just going to do the exact same thing that we did in 2016, where every out of context clip of a guy who has no script and just fucking rambles, we're going to just frame up the one thing and just, we're going to do the exact same thing. Exact same thing from 2016, huh? Just remember that 4 years? Was it a good 4 years? Did we have a good time? Did we think that was a smart way to handle stuff? Telling people you won't have to vote. He said that his entire first run. His entire first run was, you never, just give me 4 years. I'll fix it all. I'll fix it all. Just vote for me now. You'll never have to vote again. You'll never have to vote. This is a thing he has said from the very beginning, the early rallies. He has said shit like that. His point is he's ruthlessly effective and just care now, don't care later. You're going to get tired of winning. This is like his entire framing. Look, if you want to believe it otherwise, that's fine. But come on, really? Are we? He did January 6th. There's enough reason to not like him. I mean, he was lying before when he was like all I need is 4 years. No, he ran for re-election, right? So it's like you could say he's lying. If anything, it's offensive to everybody else in the Republican Party. It's offensive to the Republican Party to say I'm it. I'm the only person that matters. As soon as if I get in, then never care about politics ever again. All of you low propensity voters, doom the party that I am in charge of to irrelevance for another 20 years because I'm the only person that can motivate you. Like, it's offensive to the Republican Party. It is not a sign that he is a dictator, in my opinion. I did not listen to that and say, oh my God, he's a dictator. Will a non-Trump Republican run for president again? Well, Trump is done after this term, so they're going to have to figure out, and you're going to have to figure out if anybody can turn out that coalition. Oh, I like Deadpool and Wolverine a lot. I thought it was good. The further I get away from it, the more I appreciate it. At some point, I won't do spoilers because just go see it. There's some really fun doozies in there. I think Feige's back, and I am excited about the MCU in a way that I haven't been in a long time. So there we go. That's my thought on all things Marvel. JDS, I kind of disagree. I was wondering, like, what is Deadpool's arc when things are further away? Bring this up, because the arc of Deadpool is actually amazing and hilarious, and it makes sense in the story. Nooch, that is a running gag in Deadpool and Wolverine. Feige's not back. He just hired RDJ to play Doom. Well, and he hired the Russos to direct the movies, and he hired the people, the Avengers people, and also, you know, what we saw with Deadpool and Wolverine was he said, "Look, we're going to clear the slate. We're not going to release anything else. This is going to be our only Marvel movie," and they released the highest-grossing R-rated movie of all time. The machine is working. The other thing I liked about Deadpool and Wolverine was it actually felt like a movie for boys who like comics and girls who like comics and girls who like the MCU and boys who like the MCU, as opposed to using the MCU as a platform to talk about stuff that I don't find particularly interesting. There were elements of Deadpool and Wolverine, this is without spoilers, that are like my least favorite things about comic book movies. Like the action figure, like ball-numbing fight scenes. I like them when they're cool. I like them when they're well shot. But in general, less is more. Deadpool had them in spades. I also am not a costume guy. I know that there's a lot of people, a lot of dudes who really get into costumes. And there was like very specific moments of, hey, let's talk about costumes. The MCU is becoming a copy of a copy of a copy. What do you fucking think comics are, dog? Comics, soap operas, professional wrestling. The art of never ending a story. What do you think happens? You start layering story on story on story, on callback, on callback, on callback. This is the beauty of the endless art form. JDS, I think that Feige has also realized that. I think we are going to get a hardening of the universes, and I think we're going to get out of a world where anybody can open a portal and the character you need falls through. J.M. Ramirez, then don't be so silly. Don't be a silly goose. That's all I'm saying. You know? Being a real silly goose. You got your wings out, your honks loud, chasing some Dutch boy around, right? Well, I accept Rush Limbaugh as my Lord and Savior if he comes back. It is a punishment to Rush Limbaugh that he is dead for Kamala Harris to run for president, because this would probably have been the dream candidate to go on the radio 3 hours a day to talk about. A candidate that has this much tape saying this many liberal things that he can court controversy because she is a black woman. This is the first time where I believe that Rush Limbaugh is being punished. Because this would be, you know, the moment. The moment. Kamala Harris is the Donovan McNabb. Well, you have to understand that the media has been very desirous of a black female candidate to the point where we are whitewashing any of her flaws. Well, I did a bit of Biden stepping down. The Rush monologue would be something along the lines of we now live under the reign of Queen Nancy Pelosi. She has deposed her puppet Joseph Biden and has now installed the new tool that she will use to attempt to ruin the country. Unfortunately for Mr. Biden, he has displeased the Queen with his lack of electoral efficiency. Snurdly, I know. Yeah. And has installed his DEI replacement. Why does Nancy Pelosi make me think of Lucille Bluth? Well, I mean, for obvious reasons. All right, guys. I've got to wrap it up here because I got to head on over to the studio and get some World's Greatest Con recording in. I'm just going to tell you. We're going to get this out. We're going to get this out in the next 2 to 3 weeks. It's going to get out in August. This episode will be out before my daughter. That's a fact. That's going to happen. World's Greatest Con. New episode is out now. Jean Judine. Oh, my fucking God. Jean Eugene Robert Houdin. That's it. Story of Jean. Fuck me. All right. Bye.